Hello, everyone. Today is Sunday, October 27th, 2019. And this is Crystal Dawn Hill. And I have a message that I've been kind of inspired to share. And this morning I had a conversation with a fellow twin flame, and she even further inspired me to share this message. She gave me a little bit more to add to it than what I was originally going to speak about. This topic is about living a dedicated life of service to whatever you want to call it, God or source or creator or your highest deity that you answer to. When you devote your life to serving the highest purpose of all of humanity, that is when you reap the greatest potential that you could possibly reach for yourself in your life. So what I was originally going to say about this is a little deep. So I'm going to start by what this friend just inspired me to share. It's very simple. And that is that when you have confusion or not sure what's going on in your life or not sure where you're headed, and that could be because you have not consciously chosen your highest path and you have not dedicated yourself to serving for the greatest good. You may have chosen something less than that, or even possibly self-serving path, which is a downward path. When you have the attitude like, well, I'm going to do this regardless of anyone else, or regardless of what God wants for me. So that was the first thing that I wanted to get out of the way, because it was not quite as deep as what I originally wanted to talk about. What I really wanted to do this message to share was in regard to our relationships in romantic partnerships. So I want to share a little bit of my backstory just to kind of segue up to what I want to talk about today. So all of my life, I knew that I was meant and I was in this world to serve others. And that knowing started from early childhood. My first memory of really being there for someone else as much as myself was, I guess I was somewhere between the ages of 4 and 6. And one of my little friends and I were sitting in my yard, and I had a candy bar. I think my mom had just brought me one back from the store or something. And I gave my friend half of my candy bar. It was my natural inclination to share. And when I went inside, my mom scolded me for sharing. And I remember that very, very distinctly and how I felt about it. And I remember feeling disappointed in her that she didn't think it was okay to share. And so looking back on that moment, I know that my heart was inclined to be of service to others. And then, of course, along the way, I discovered my empathic nature and my intuitive abilities and all of that kind of stuff. What happened, though, along the way was I kind of got derailed by society. I started working in retail, and that, in correlation with my mother's negative influence and other situations, all kind of steered me in a direction that kind of misguided me into believing that our focus should be on everything in our external world rather than our inside knowing. And so, around the age of somewhere between 30 and 33, I began to veer back to my internal guidance. After having tried to do that a couple of times in my 20s, and like I would feel drawn back to that spiritual path, and then I would get jerked back into my 3D reality real quickly or real abruptly. Finally, in my 30s, I started really devoting myself to the spiritual path for real. And I was married to my second husband at the time, and I had an awakening by falling for a near twin. And he was very spiritual, and we spoke. We never met in person, but we've been in the same room together, but we never actually met face to face. But we have spoken on the phone a couple times, and we were interacting via email for a while back in the 90s. And he really opened me up to seeing my destination, seeing what was possible in life and in love. And when I discovered that it wasn't him that I was destined to be with, my attention turned back to my inner journey, and I'm like, okay, well, if that wasn't it, there's something even better, because I can't imagine it, being more incredible than this. Well, it was. And because I stayed devoted after that, things got more majestic, more magical, more miraculous than I could have ever imagined. So, with all of that backstory being shared, I now want to really get into the nuts and bolts and the meat of the message that I wanted to convey. And that is that in the spiritual and the twin flame community, there are so many people looking for answers for their life. They're looking for a sense of belonging and acceptance, and they're looking for true love. And I can tell you with 100% confidence and certainty and assurance and from experience that you must devote yourself to your destined path and journey in order to be able to attain all of that I just mentioned. Most especially true love, because true love can only be experienced by having a connection with your highest source of guidance. Once that relationship has been established and you're communicating with your highest source in a two-way communication, and you've established that with them, with it, with him, however you like to say it, then that energy, whether you want to call it the Holy Spirit, the third energy, higher self, source energy, whatever you'd like to call it, that energy will manifest itself in your physical reality, and you will embody it. And this is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day and then the next day you're there. That doesn't happen when you travel in the physical world. You literally have to get in behind the wheel and commit yourself to driving the distance, and you will eventually reach your destination. A lot of people on the spiritual journey say there is no destination, that it's only the journey. In a way, that's true, because you have to experience a journey along the way, but there is a destination, and I've reached it, and that is true love. That is a sense of wholeness and fulfillment within yourself, and that does manifest within yourself and within your divine complement. But none of that happens unless you commit yourself 100% and devote yourself to that life of service. And you can tell other people all day long that you're devoted. You can tell your friend, you can tell your family, you can tell your spiritual coach or your life coach or your counselor or your fellow twin flame or whoever you want, but the truth will be seen by God. So a word that we like to use in the spiritual and twin flame community is alignment. And that is the key to living a full and satisfactory or satisfying life, is to be in alignment, to be your authentic self to the best possible level you can. There's layers to this. It isn't one day you're living a dualistic life and then the next day you're suddenly fully aligned. It doesn't happen that way. It's a process. I've been going through this process and peeling back the layers for over 20 years now, or just about 20 years. And so it is a process, but it's important to keep moving forward and to push through and to allow yourself to experience everything. When you have feelings, don't push them down. When you have experiences come your way that are unpleasant or difficult or challenging, allow yourself to experience it and get through it the best possible way that you can. Because when we try to turn back away or we try to veer around it or something, we just keep running into it over and over. Have you ever had a time where you said, man, I thought I'd gotten through this. I thought I'd learned from this. I thought I overcame this. And here it is back again. It's because there's another layer to it. To speak specifically about the twin flame journey, we have to experience everything in layers and not just these major things in our life. And this is interesting that I intuitively said this because this is another topic I wanted to speak on. So I'll go ahead and go into it a little bit here. I just discovered this last week, and it's most incredible in my personal journey for me to have discovered. When you have some kind of a disagreement or conflict with someone in a conventional relationship or a relationship with someone that's not like a deep soul connection, that conflict arises and you begin to deal with it on an external level with that person like you have a conversation or argument or something. And when you begin to work through it, it starts out talking about it. And then if both parties are willing to talk through it to a certain degree, then you get a little deeper and you start to get to a place of where both of you see eye to eye on a heart-to-heart level. Well, with twins and divine soul connections, it works the opposite way. When there's conflict or a disagreement or a misunderstanding, the two people in the situation turn inward first. It's not something we choose to do. It's just something that happens naturally and organically. And we turn inward first and we examine everything that went on. And we work through it in our connection. And as we work through it, then it begins to bubble up to the surface. And if it goes that far, then they begin to communicate about it through external communication with one another. And so it has to work itself through all of the layers. And I think I might have done like a little short video about this at some point, but I didn't go into detail about what those layers are. And it's the same layers that we talk about in the twin flame community and the spiritual community about our light body. So it starts in the spiritual, in the mental, the emotional, the etheric, and the physical. And that's how it has to work itself out through each one of those layers. And so when you find yourself coming back to a same type of scenario in something, that's because one of those layers didn't or wasn't able or willing to deal with that particular scenario. Once it works through each layer, that's when it gets fully resolved, and then you can move on to the next, if you want to call it, lesson or experience in your life. So going back to my original reason for wanting to do this message today, in order to find satisfaction and fulfillment in every area of your life, you must devote yourself to that internal journey. And it really isn't a matter of choice, because you've already chosen it when you came here. It's a matter of answering that inner calling and knowing that you have already devoted yourself, and it's just a matter of reaffirming that commitment. And when you try to veer away from that, whether it's conscientious or not, you do feel that pull to keep coming back. And that's the beautiful part about the journey, is that you can go your own direction as often as you want. And when you get to a point where you realize that it's all about your highest calling, it's still there waiting to carry you forward and upward to your highest destiny. So there was a little bit of something else that I wanted to add to that. I lost it. So if it comes back later, I'll just add it on as a written message underneath, or I'll do another little short video on that. But for now, I'm going to end that. Thank you all very much for listening and for following along in my journey. I wish you all the very best on your journey as well, and have a wonderful day.